Hi guys, it's SimLicy here, so welcome to my very first tutorial. So today I'm going to be talking about the Move Objects cheat in The Sims 4. I get so many questions regarding this cheat, and so I thought it'd be a good idea to do this tutorial. I hope it is helpful. Please let me know if you guys would like me to do more tutorials, because today I'm going to strictly be talking about the Move Objects cheat. I'm also going to mention my camera settings because I got a surprising amount of questions about that. So you can change your camera controls right here, and you can switch in between the Sims 4 camera and the Sims 3 camera. I use the Sims 3 camera because it allows a lot more freedom with movement, so you can get down low at like Sims eye level in build mode. So all you have to do is hold down the scroll wheel on your mouse, and yeah, you can move up and down. It's really easy. That's how I do that. That's how I get really close when I'm moving in builds. There's no other trick to it. I also use the arrow keys and sometimes the W, A, and SD on my keyboard, because you can control your movement by moving left and right that way too. And so in combination with my mouse and that's how I move around so easily. So if you guys would like me to go in a little bit more depth with that, I can definitely do that. I also got questions about landscaping, which I think should be its own separate tutorial, even though I have a little bit of plants right here, which I will talk about in just a second. But I also got questions about roofing and things like that. So please let me know your guys' thoughts on doing more tutorials in the future. And please give me your guys' feedback, since this is the first tutorial that I'm doing. It'd be really helpful to know how I can improve and those kinds of things. So yeah, I hope this is helpful. A little bit of a disclaimer though, I do play The Sims 4 on my Windows PC. I've never played it on a Mac, and I've never played it on console, so things might be a little bit different depending on which device or operating system you use to play The Sims 4. So as you can see, I have a few different scenarios set up. I decorated a kid's room, a kitchen, a little kind of fishing guy seating area. That's pretty cute. And then I have an open door, the OMSP shelf, which I get tons of questions about, and I will definitely go over. And then I have some weird stuff going on here. But I made a list because I did ask over on my community tab for you guys to leave your questions that you had about Move Objects. And I made a list of some of the like reoccurring topics that you guys left. So thank you guys so much for leaving your questions. I read every single one of them. They were really helpful when coming up with things to talk about for this tutorial. So the list of things that I have to talk about are how to make objects bigger and smaller, how to raise and lower objects, how to freely rotate objects and move them around on the grid, how to cluster items on counters, shelves, dressers, whatever the surface may be, the OMSP shelf, the red shelf, and then how to put items on bay windows. So I'm going to go through each one of these, and yeah, I'll try to be as clear as I possibly can. I'll put text up on the screen that way in case you can't understand me, or if you're not sure which keys I'm talking about, hopefully that'll make it a little bit more clear. But the first couple of things that I wanted to talk about are not really related to Move Objects, but they seem like they would be, so I definitely wanted to cover them in this video, and that's how to make items bigger and smaller. So at this point, I do have Move Objects off, so you'll see if I try to put items too close together, everything just kind of turns red and won't let you place it. So all you have to do to resize an object is first grab a hold of it by hitting the left button on your mouse, and then hitting the control right bracket key to size it up, and then control left bracket key to size it back down. So there is a limit to sizing down objects. They only get so small. I mean, these decor objects get so tiny. They're really adorable, like this pot right here. Look at how cute it is. It's so tiny. It's so adorable. But yeah, so control right bracket key to size it up. And I don't really think there's a limit to sizing up objects. You can essentially cover your entire lot with one object. It's pretty ridiculous. Like if I zoom out all the way, I can just keep going and make this as big as I would like it to be. It's really funny. But yeah, so you can do lots of different things with it. You can do a lot of different things with landscaping, decor objects, and just kind of play around with it, especially once Move Objects is on, because you have a lot more freedom, but you don't need Move Objects on to be able to resize objects. So again, just as a recap, control left bracket key to size an object down, and control right bracket key to size it back up. So very handy. I love that tool. It's one of my absolute favorites. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about that you don't need Move Objects on to be able to do is to freely move an object on the grid. So all you have to do is grab a hold of the object by hitting the left button on your mouse, and then holding down the Alt key, you can move it wherever you would like to, and it doesn't snap into place. So if you're not holding the Alt key, this is what it looks like. It just kind of snaps around into certain slots. But if you hold down the Alt key, then you can place it wherever you would like without having Move Objects on. So this is really handy. And this is also how you freely rotate objects, or at least it's pretty similar. So again, grab a hold of the object by hitting the left button on your mouse, hold down the Alt key, but this time hold down the left button on your mouse, and then you can freely turn an object wherever you would like to, so you can position it at whatever angle. So this is very handy when it comes to decorating and placing furniture and those kinds of things. So again, grab a hold of the object, left button on your mouse, hold down the Alt key, and then hold down the left button on your mouse to freely rotate the object. So it's very, very handy, and you don't need Move Objects On to be able to use any of those tools. And I actually did this whole little patch right here without having Move Objects On. So if I grab a hold of this low-lying plant right here and hold down the Alt key, I can actually place it very close to the other plants, almost even overlapping. So you can do pretty lush gardens without having Move Objects On. For instance, this plant right here, I used the Size Up tool to make it look like it was a little bit fuller and covering a little bit more area. So originally, I think this plant is about this size, and it snaps in right here, which looks okay, but if you want it to be a little bit fuller, just hit the Control right bracket key to size it up, and it looks really lush, and that's really cool. I did the same thing with the rocks. And something that I noticed while doing this little patch right here, this plant that came with cats and dogs does not abide by the Move Objects rule at all. You can place it anywhere. So Move Objects is still off, like everything else turns red, but this thing, you can place it anywhere, all over the place. I did notice that it does interrupt the broom, which is kind of funny. Oh, and I guess the lamp too. But yeah, you can place it anywhere. I had no idea. I'm not really sure why that is, why this plant is special for whatever reason. But if you don't like using Move Objects, then you could definitely place this plant wherever you would like to, and it doesn't seem to cause any problems. But it is time to turn on the Move Objects cheat. So to do this, we do have to open up the cheat bar. And to open the cheat bar, all you have to do is hit Control-Shift-C on your keyboard all at the same time. And then this window will open up right here that we can type into. So this is where we type every cheat, no matter what it is. So to turn on the Move Objects cheat, we type bb.moveobjects. Now you'll hear some people say to do a space and then on. You don't have to, it's not required. You can if you would like to, it doesn't matter. I never do, I always just type bb.moveobjects, hit enter, and it says the Move Objects cheat is on. And then we hit Control-Shift-C again on our keyboard to close the cheat bar. And the first thing that I wanted to show you guys is how to raise and lower objects. So this is the first thing that is required for Move Objects On to be able to do, and it's a very handy tool. You'll see people use it all the time. And to raise an object up, we do have to hit Control-9, and to lower an object, it's Control-0. But this is something that I see a lot of people get confused about in the comments, because they'll go to raise an object up and they'll just hit the 9 key, and their camera will go crazy. So we'll see here, if I don't hit Control, I just hit the 9 key, my camera's gonna go crazy. It's gonna shoot me somewhere else in the map. It'll be random. It doesn't really matter where it shoots you to. It doesn't make a difference. So just hit Control-9 to raise an object up and Control-0 to lower it back down. So this comes in handy when putting objects up on shelves like this, in case they don't snap to it, because you'll notice that certain items don't actually snap to surfaces like a shelf or a counter, but you want to place them there anyways. So let's say that I wanted to place, I don't know, let me find something that doesn't snap to a surface. Let me say I wanted to place this on top of the counter right here. It's a little bit big, so I probably want to size it down. So again, Control left bracket key to size it down, but it doesn't snap to the surface. So if I hit Control-9, I can actually raise it up to get it up on top of the surface, and it looks like it's sitting right here. It's so adorable. It's actually really cute, but I think if it was inside, it would have a harsh shadow. But some things you may want to put up on this shelf, but it won't snap to the shelf, but it'll snap to the counter surface. So I think, for instance, this will snap to the counter, but it won't go up on the shelf. Even if I have these other things not up here, it won't go up on top of the shelf. So I would also want to use the Control-9 key to put it up on top of the shelf. But what about it snapping to the counter? So this is where moving a surface out of the way comes in handy. So even though it wouldn't snap to the shelf, even if the counter wasn't here, I can't use the Control-9 key to move it up on top of the shelf. So if I move the counter out of the way, I can grab a hold of this item and move it off of the surface. So since Move Objects is on, it won't drop to the ground like it would if it was off. It'll just stay here floating in the air. So it's very, very handy for placing objects wherever we'd like to. So if I grab a hold of it and hit the Control-9 key, then I can place it up on top of the surface. and it doesn't quite place to the right level, and you'll find that with a lot of objects, but we'll talk about that later. But if I size it down, we can probably make it look kind of decent. It's a little bit silly looking, but that's how you do that, and then we can move the counter right back to its original spot, and this item will stay there. But something to keep in mind, if an object doesn't automatically snap to a surface and you raise it up, it's just floating there, so it's really not on the shelf surface. So if I go ahead and make the walls down, it's just kind of floating here, as you will see with the other stuff with the bay windows. So you may want to keep that in mind for playability. If you don't want stuff floating in the air and kind of blocking certain things, you may want something that just snaps to the shelf. So the things that I had there originally are things that snap to shelf surfaces. So there's a kind of a limited number of items that actually snap to these shelves, which is kind of frustrating, but few of these decoration items that are in the kitchen decor will snap to the surface, and then other things you'll want to raise up and place them a little bit more freely that way, but they will just be floating in the air. So you'll see if I flatten the walls again, that disappears because it's actually on the surface. So hopefully that makes sense. It's a little bit confusing. But another reason that I move counters or other surfaces out of the way when placing decor objects is to be able to clutter them up a little bit closer. And so this snaps to the surface, but it kind of is a little bit tricky because it snaps in only certain places, and even if I hold the Alt key, it doesn't change anything. It still only has its certain places that'll snap to on the counter. But I wanted it to be a little bit closer here in the corner. So if I grab a hold of it and then I hold the Alt key, I can just freely move it off the surface and then place it as close as I possibly can to the wall wherever I would like to. And then even this little barrel right here that I raised up, I can grab a hold of it, hold the Alt key, and then place it really close and make a nice little clutter decoration. And so that's how I get items really close together and make really cluttered surfaces. That's how I decorated the top of this dresser. I moved it out of the way, and I had all of these items just sitting in random spots. I think most of them were just sitting here on the surface. And so let's pull all of these items over here. They snap to different spots, and so it's kind of a cluttered mess. Move Objects is on, so I can place them all pretty close together, but it looks a bit silly and it's not very organized. So to make it a little bit more organized, I would just grab whichever ones I wanted to place, and it kind of depends on which surface I'm cluttering up, where I place items. There's no real rhyme or reason, just whatever I think looks good, and sometimes this can take some time to make things look nice. But you just grab a hold of the object by hitting the left button on your mouse, hold the Alt key, and then you can freely place it wherever you would like to. And then also hold down the left button on your mouse to be able to rotate them to get them at the right angle. And this is literally how I clutter up every single surface in the game, no matter what I'm building. It just makes it a lot easier. But the same thing with the shelf. They're not actually on this surface. So a sim might set a cup down and it'll be clipping into it. So keep that in mind if clipping bothers you, or if a cat jumps up and walks through everything. That's because the game actually doesn't know anything's on the surface because they're technically not snapped to the surface at all. But it looks really good and it makes for really nice clutter decoration. And so that is one of my favorite, most useful things to do. And this kind of brings me to cluttering up this bay window. So a lot of you guys asked about bay windows, whether it was this one, there's a couple others in game, there's one that came with laundry day, they're all the same. So this is actually not a shelf, nothing will snap to it. It's basically just like a regular window. We have to pretend that there's still a wall here, because if I go to place, let's see, let me just copy over this lamp. So if I wanted to place it here, if I hit the Control 9 key to raise it up and place it in the shelf, it's actually going to hit like a wall. Like there's this barrier here, so it won't actually go through there to place it. So it looks a bit silly. It looks like it's just going to fall off the edge of the shelf if it was really placed here. But to get around this, we actually have to go outside, and then we can place it wherever we'd like to. Just raise it up a little bit, and yeah, you can place it here in the shelf just by going outside. So we can do this with anything. Let's say we wanted to put another plant up here. If I grab, which plant do I want to use? I want to place this one up here. So again, left button key, Control 9 to raise it up, and we have to be outside of the building. There are certain things though that will go through the barrier. For instance, if we use the bay window that came with laundry day, certain plants, like I think these ones, will go through the wall barrier. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but yeah, it's a little, here, I'll show you what I mean actually. Let me grab the window from laundry day. So if I wanted to place something here on top of this window, there's certain things that'll go through the barrier, and I noticed this when I just did my garden shed build. So this will go through the barrier, but if I go to place, I think maybe, I'm not really sure, I think like a lamp or something. It's certain things. It's hard to say exactly what'll do that, but this won't go through the barrier. Even though I'm trying to pull it through the wall, it won't actually go. So we have to go outside of it and then hit the Control-9 key to raise it up. And then of course hold the Alt key down to place it where you would like to so it's not clipping in any weird spots. So that looks pretty good. It's a really nice way for cluttering up surfaces. I think it's raised up a little bit too high actually. I think if I raise it down slightly, but see, I run into the same issue and have to go back outside, hold the Alt key, and then I think that's at a better level. But that's one of the main issues that you will run into actually with using the Control-9 key, is having objects raised to the right level. So things don't always raise up exactly the way you would want them to when you go to clutter up surfaces. So that can be really frustrating. As you may have noticed when I went to go raise up this lamp here in the window, it raised up just fine placing it, but it didn't raise up to the right level. It actually looks like it's just floating there, but you'll see that the one that I placed right here is at the exact right level that I wanted it to be. So this is where the OMSP shelf comes in handy. That's the red shelf that I've been using for a couple months now. It's the most handy tool that I could ever imagine. I love it so much. I use it all the time. I've seen other people start using it, and I'm so happy because it's really like the most handy tool ever. It is custom content though, so if you leave it in your build, it will show up as custom content on the gallery, but if you don't leave it in your build, then it won't cause any problems there. But you can leave it in if you would like to, because there are some ways you can leave it in your build that are also really handy if you don't mind your builds showing up as having custom content. So let me show you how to use the red shelf. The OMSP shelf is actually what it's called. I'm not really sure what that stands for, but basically it's a shelf that has tons of slots, and it'll fit so many things on it, even things that normally wouldn't snap to shelf surfaces. So it can come in so handy, and it works just as a regular shelf does. It snaps to the wall, and then you can hold the Alt key to freely place it on the wall a little bit easier. So let's say I wanted to place something on top of this fireplace mantle. If I raise it up holding the Alt key, I can place it right to this level of this shelf. You can get it pretty much as close as you would like depending on how careful you want to be, but that's pretty close for my liking. So let's say I wanted to place this jar up here. It won't snap to the shelf surface at all, but it'll snap to the red shelf in all of these different spots. So if I leave it there and then I grab a hold of it again by hitting the left button on my mouse, grab a hold of it, hold the Alt key to drag it away. It'll stay here floating in the air because Move Objects is on, of course. And then I can just grab a hold of the shelf, hit delete to delete it, and then grab this jar again, hold the Alt key, and then I can drag it. Oh, it snaps to, oh, I didn't know that this was a surface up here. Interesting. Okay, well, if I hold the Alt key, see now it's gonna try to place it up there, which is another thing that you might run into, so we might as well show it to you guys. If I grab this jar and just fill in all of these spots, it'll eliminate my issue of things snapping to the surface up there. But if I place this shelf back, just right here very carefully at the right level, go to place this jar of olives. I think that's what they are. They kind of look like olives, right? Anyways, grab a hold of it by hitting the left button on your mouse, hold the Alt key to drag it away, and then we can just place it very carefully, grab a hold of the shelf, hit delete to delete it, and then it's no longer in my build. And the jar of olives is set there right on the shelf, and then we can just delete these items because we didn't want them there originally. So that's how I use the OMSP shelf. It's very handy. You can use it on whatever surface you would like to. So let me show you how to actually fix this lamp here on the window. So if I grab the shelf, place it right here at the same level as the window shelf, let it snap to the shelf surface, again the same way that I placed it before, grab a hold of it, hitting the left button on my mouse, hold the Alt key to drag it outside, and then we can look in here and place it very carefully in the window, holding the Alt key the whole time, and then deleting the shelf. So that's how you place it, and see now it is at the right level, and that's why I use the red shelf. It's so handy. No more floating objects. You can basically place anything wherever you would like to and get really creative with it. It's the most handy tool. I love it so much. It's linked in the description of all of my videos now, so you guys can find it really easily, and I just love it so much. But like I mentioned, you can leave it in your build if you would like to. So I have this example over here where I clustered up the shelf so you can see that there are a bunch of slots. I didn't use the Control-9 key, by the way. There's so many slots you can place so many different objects. Even this normally wouldn't fit to shelves, but it fits on this shelf, and yeah, it's the best. I could go on and rant and rave how much I love this shelf. It's the best. But you'll see here that there's this weird shadow, and you might be wondering what that is, and that's because the red shelf actually has another swatch that's invisible. So you could place something underneath of it. Let's say, well, the example on the download link is a refrigerator. So if you place this refrigerator, but you wanted to put a bunch of different objects on top of it, and you didn't want to delete the shelf by pulling the objects away and then placing them back, and you didn't mind there being custom content in your build, you could just make it invisible, and it kind of looks like things are floating there. So I'd probably actually want to turn it red again, grab a hold of it to readjust it to the right level of the refrigerator, and then go ahead and switch it to clear. And so that's how you can do that. I mean, I never leave it in my build because I want you guys to be able to find my builds really easily on the gallery. So that's why I never leave it in my build, but you could definitely do that if you would like to. So we can see here, we could just click on this and turn it red. It's the most handy thing. I love it so much. It's the best. So another thing I want to show you guys is how to make open doors, because this is something else I was also getting a lot of questions about. And this is basically the same way that I would put a painting up here. So these are two things that I want to show you guys here really quick. And it's very easy. So with this door, I just have an archway right here because I figured that would look the best, and then I just have a door overlapping it. They overlap because move objects is on. It's not facing the right direction, so I'm going to just hit the period key to make it turn. And you'll see here that this snaps to the wall, so that can be kind of frustrating when you want to go place it at an angle, even if you hold the Alt key. And then if you go to rotate it, it won't rotate, and it can be kind of frustrating and hard to figure out. But if I place a wall at an angle and then delete the wall over here so it won't snap to it, I can make it snap to this wall, hit the period key to make it go in a different direction, grab a hold of it by hitting the left button on my mouse, hold the Alt key, and then drag it over very closely to the archway. It looks like the door is open. So I don't do this very often, but this is a really cool technique if you want it to look like a door is open. And since the archway is here, even if there was a shorter wall height, I would probably still put the archway. That way it thinks that this is still an enclosed room, even though it isn't right now. But if it was in a build and you didn't want to have outside lighting, put the archway and it'll still have the indoor lighting, and it looks like the door is open. So this is the same technique that I would use for putting a painting up here. I would have to delete all of the walls around it because a painting will snap to the walls and not to the fireplace. So let's say I wanted to put this painting up on top of this surface, and I grab a hold of it again by hitting the left button on my mouse, and I turn it in the right direction by hitting the period key, and now I hit Control 9 to raise it up, and just keep going till I hit the right level. I think that looks pretty good. And then hold the Alt key so it gets nice and close to the fireplace so it looks like it's actually hanging there, and then let go. So that's how I place decorations on top of these fireplaces that came with cats and dogs. You could also do this with a mirror or a TV or anything that really snaps to the wall. Just make sure you delete the wall behind it and then replace the wall once you're finished so everything looks like it did originally. And it's just a great way for cluttering up different areas and adding more decoration that you normally wouldn't be able to. So I absolutely love that technique, but the last thing that I wanted to talk about was this weird area over here. And these are just areas that you might run into issues with, and I thought it would be important to cover. And so if you guys remember, we don't need move objects on to be able to size objects up and down. So this is actually a mirror sized up, and as you can see, the frame sized up, but the mirror didn't. If I size it back down by hitting the Control left bracket key, you'll see it's just a regular mirror, but if I hit the Control right bracket key to size it up, it looks a bit silly. And same with this one, if I size it up to its original size, Control right bracket key, it looks like a normal mirror, but if I want to size it down, it doesn't work. So mirrors don't work with that. And another thing that doesn't work is actually these countertops. So an island counter works if you hit the Control left bracket key to size it down. You can size it down no problem and size it up the same way that you would do any other object. But when it comes to the actual counters, so you'll see the difference here is the lip. An island counter will have a lip on it, and then the regular counters don't. And these ones won't size up at all. If I go to size them up or down, it just kind of lets go of it and nothing happens. Even if I move the candles out of the way, nothing happens. So you can't size these up or down. It doesn't work. You can still do everything else. Hold the Alt key to place it wherever you would like to, or Control 9 to raise it up, Control 0 to bring it back down, but can't size it up or down. But I did want to show you guys with these candles, you can resize these, you can make them bigger or smaller, but you'll notice the flame doesn't go with it. So you may want to size them up or down. I've done it before depending on which candles. For instance, these little tea lights, I do size these down sometimes. This one right here that came with Dine Out, sometimes I think it's a little bit too big, so I'll size it down. The flame will stay its original size, but for this one, it doesn't look that weird. So you can do that. Another thing that you can size up and down are these decorations that came with Jungle Adventure. I love these so much, and I always want to use them on interiors, and you will see they look fine here on the outside, but if I take it inside, there's this crazy shadow. So this is how it is normally. I think this is its original size, so you'll see the shadow looks fine, but when you go to size it down, the shadow is still there, and so it doesn't always work when placing it on interiors. So I don't always get to use that, so it's just something you might want to keep in mind. And then doors and windows work the same as mirrors. The door frame and window frame will size up and down, but the actual window glass part won't. So keep that in mind when you're going to size objects up and down. You can do it. They probably still work the same way, but yeah, it doesn't look very good. And another thing that stays in the same spot is water. So if I go to resize this fountain right here, the water stays in the same spot, but the fish itself will resize. And I think that is all the things I wanted to cover. If I forgot something, I apologize. I've been trying to plan this out as best as I possibly can with setting up different scenarios and thinking of things to talk about. But if you guys would like me to do more tutorials in the future, like I mentioned, there were other things you guys wanted to know more about, like roofing, landscaping, and doing other things. And if you guys would like to see me do a real-time build, please let me know in the comments down below. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. And yeah, please leave any comments or suggestions that you have, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye!
I'm walking down the street on clouds instead of the concrete I'm dancing through. Everything's about to come my way. Nothing can ruin my day, no matter what anyone does or say. I smile at fools. No, I don't care, 'cause I am on my way up, and I won't stop.